I thought he was going through all them papers. Because I said, well, we can be here for the rest of the night. But thank goodness he didn't go through those papers. But you got enough of them here. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. First thing, and clearly what is obvious, what we would have to do is contrast how wonderful the Barbados Labour Party family has conducted its business tonight. I am justly proud to be a member of the Barbados Labour Party. I'm not going to talk about how the other side conduct their business. No, I'm not going to. That is for them to do, to sort out their business. But the Barbados Labour Party has shown the people of Barbados that we know how to do our business. We do it in an orderly fashion, and we take care of our business when it has to be done, how it has to be done, and in a proper manner. And that is the Barbados Labour Party way, for sure. My second job is to congratulate my colleague, also in the Prime Minister's office, Senator Chantal Munro-Knight. Chantal, you have done the walking. You have done the talking. But let me tell you, now the job really begins. Now it is time to get out there and press the flesh. Now it is time to get out there and win the hearts and minds of the rest of the constituents. Because I know as you carry the banner for the Barbados Labour Party, I have no doubt that you will be successful whenever the Prime Minister calls that time. Let me also say, as leader of Christchurch, and I have not given up that position yet, the Prime Minister appointed me as Christchurch leader, and I continue it. I am happy to have Chantal join our ranks. I must say that, please, I give apologies for Minister Ryan Strawn, who is away on government business at this time. But we are looking forward for Chantal joining our team. And again, as we did in 2018, as we did in 2022, whenever the next time, all 5 in Christchurch. All 5 in Christchurch. And I want to tell you something. You know, what tells me that Chantal is already a wonderful leader for Christchurch South? When we had the problems in Worthing with the outfall having had a problem and we had to go and fix it, Chantal calling me all the time when it will be fixed, how it will be fixed, what you're doing. Never heard a word from Mr. Thorne. Never heard a word from Mr. Thorne. When we had the problem in Oistins with all the sand, y'all remember that? All of that going on. When the minister was out there, he tells me he never heard a word from Mr. Thorne. When we decided that we were going to spend millions of dollars upgrading Oistins just before Cricket World Cup for the people of Oistins, and I passed through there, it looked real good. You all agree? And all Mr. Thorne could do is say, he don't understand why. Why they're spending so much money. As if the people of Oistins don't deserve it. Well, let me tell you, the Barbados Labour Party is firmly behind the people of Oistins. You definitely deserved it. I am happy for you. And watch this space. We can continue to improve Oistins all over Christchurch. Because Christchurch must remain strong, and all 5 in Christchurch. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. This government of the Barbados Labour Party is working very, very hard. It's working very, very hard on your behalf. And everybody, and wherever we go, people tell us how hard you're working and what a good job you're doing. But it does not happen by serendipity. It comes from planning, it comes from organization, and it comes from working together with one goal and one purpose. And we are a united team, and we continue to be united. And we will take this country forward as a united, strong, dedicated, and committed Barbados Labour Party. Good night, and God bless you.
Excellent. XA 2018. Please move your card. XA 2018. You don't know, but I can tell you. I did a video sometime back of an 82-year-old woman who slept Christmas night under the bridge in town. I don't even hear say that's facts. You understand? And we got her in a house today in Paradise Village. And it came through Chantal Monroe night. And members of her team went ahead and got that house outfitted with everything. And the lady today is with her son resting comfortably in Paradise Village, unknown to the outgoing MP. I ask anybody here now tonight, including the clowns that listen to me, Bobby Morris, Hal Goddard, Patrick Goddard, a.k.a. Rams, all the names. If they know where this lady living today, oh, you could be an MP. A lady begging you for help. She got a house of living. She live on the streets of Barbados, night for night, in the bush, in town, squatting. So you walk, and the MP don't know where she is today. I can let you know where she is. I can let you know where she is. She's out resting comfortably in Paradise Village in the constituency of Christchurch South. You understand? Let Ralph Town know that. And before I pass on to my next speaker, I got to tell peace more too. The lady who seconded his nomination, who lived in Scarborough, a beautiful lady who lost both of her legs. Yes. He has not seen or spoken to her for 2 years since she made the nomination, which is bad. And I asked him, Ralph, send the lady a card, some flowers, some chocolates. Let me go and see the girl, the old woman. She won't come here tonight. She won't vote for Chantal. But the daughter said no. But this is the kind of man, I don't know what happened. No, I've been very truthful for y'all. He worked very well the first term. But something went the second term. And that was it. So that's why today we are here now. And Chantal is the lady. My next speaker now is the man who has made Barbados the gem of the Caribbean. Clean and green, Farley. Clean and green. Wherever you go, every constituency, every community, all you hear is clean and green. Adrian, medic, come on, medic. You got the streets clean.
Good night, Christchurch. All night for Monroe night. Christchurch, a pleasant good night to you. I see more people here than all the collective effort for the 3 days in that deconsecrated place called George Street. I want to hear the voice of the Labour Party tonight. I want to hear the voice of the women in the Labour Party tonight. I want to hear the voice of the Barbados Labour Party because it is a good voice to hear. When I look good tonight, man, I want to tell you all tonight that you look good. You sound good. I want to hear your voices sound good tonight, man. And you have all reasons to sound good tonight. You have all reasons to sound good. And as I drove through St. Lawrence, as I drove through Worthing, I can say tonight my other senses working because Christchurch South smell good tonight too. And we must remember prior to 2018, the putrid smell of feces on the road all over Christchurch. You must remember it. You must remember it. And it was told by my General Secretary, a man who laid the charge for Christchurch South. And don't forget the good work that Dr. Walker did in Christchurch South. He remind me to tell you all, XA 2013, you may have your car lights on, your engine on too, so it's an emergency and you need to move your vehicle at once. But I want to say today, this party is a party that practices the politics of inclusivity. I want to say so. No person was at the door to check a list. So when I see Elaine, you got in here without anybody having to record your name, Elaine. Liz Ambassador, you got in here. I don't see anybody at the door recording your name. The ladies in this party were allowed in this chamber without having to go through security. And I want to say this party is a party who uplifts the women in Barbados. And I want the women in Barbados to give yourself a round of applause. You have made a contribution to this country. You have, by your sweat, blood, and tears, made a contribution to this country. And I want to say today and tonight, because it's all night for Chantal Monroe night. It is all night. It is not about me tonight. It is not about Christchurch West Central. But I want to say that the envelope of Christchurch is ready to assist you, Chantal, whenever you call. We are ready to uplift you and bring you to the type of representation that this constituency deserves. I want to say that Chantal, for me, is the action lady. She is the action lady. Yes. Yes, she is the action lady. And I want to say, only a couple of weeks ago, we had the Ernesto, the depression that caused a little concern in Oistins. 5:30 in the morning, in the nascent hours of the morning, Chantal got out of her bed and went in Oistins to ensure that the fishermen had a voice and a space. She ensured that she was there to help them and give them the support. That is the type of representation that we need. And I want to say the action girl, when Beryl, unfortunately on the 1st of July, when it wreaked havoc in our fishing bay and in Oistins, delivering sometimes up to 5 feet of sand. Chantal was there in Pancart, man. Chantal was there as an action lady to assist those people in Oistins. Chantal has a presence in this constituency, ladies and gentlemen, and by the show of support I see here, whenever the bell, whenever it's rung, whenever, I expect that Chantal will be victorious to rescue, to restore, and to rebuild this constituency. I want to say to you, you have a champion of a lady. Hold her up. There's a saying, and I want to say so, full of testicular fortitude. There's a saying that when you want something said, you call on a man. When you want something done, you call on a woman. And you call on Chantal this evening to do something for Christchurch. So I want you to say, and the 3 R's of politics must be recognized as rescue, it must be recognized as the ability to restore, and it must be recognized with the ability to rebuild. I want to leave tonight by saying that some persons in George Street took that 3 R's, took those 3 R's, and misinterpreted it to mean rancor, restlessness. And obviously somebody may say something else, but you could alliterate. You could alliterate what the other R means. I didn't say. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to continue to give Chantal Monroe Knight the support. I want you to continue to give her the love. I want to say all night for Monroe Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
I don't want anybody to have any misrepresentation or any mix-up. Dale Marshall, the Attorney General, please come inside. You have not been put out nor locked down. Dale Marshall, please come in. Somebody may leave here and say that Jerome Walker locked you out because he got the list. So Dale, please come in. Show the face. Because I know we got some wicked people all over the place. Wicked. 224 people lost the boats during the hurricane. 224. 8 of them came to Christchurch South. 8. One particular boat concerned the lady here called Harris and her husband, Cookie. Ralston called her the best cook in Christchurch. Nickname her Cookie. You know, up to now, here we are looking for Cookie to find out what happened with the boat. If the boat get repair, you can imagine that. And he asked her to cook election after election, free food. And Friday, he come there to eat every day. The food was so, the Christchurch thing was so good. Cookie, you know I tell you like. That's the MP we had. So ladies and gentlemen, the next man up now is our neighbor. Let's cross the road. We share things together. The man from the east. A man called Wilfred. Uncle Wilfred.
I usually start on this podium by saying Christchurch East. However, I shall not start that way today. Christchurch South. Look, it is an interesting dynamic. I mean, the lines between Christchurch East and Christchurch South are so blurred that you don't even know who is who. A family live on this side of the road. A family live, the same family live on the other side of the road. One voting for me, one can vote for Chantel. That is why it hurt me. A number of you were upset at what the fella did. He was my neighbor. He was my comrade in arms. He was the man on my boundary. He was the man who had to speak at my meetings because we represented one another. And then he did what he had to do. I could perhaps forgive him if he had decided not to run at all. I can't forgive him for what he did. He created a crisis where one did not have to exist. And then he decided that as opposed to being his right-hand man, I am his enemy. For some reason, the man seemed to got a particular issue with me. If he wasn't satisfied with all the mayhem and havoc and chaos and disorganization that he was causing in George Street, he went on his press conference yesterday and he said he won't talk about me. I hope he is watching now or somebody gives him the YouTube link that he could see what is happening here. More people came out today to vote for his replacement than turned out to support him at his national conference. Stop minding other people's business and mind your own. I can say this. All the talk about democracy, Barbados Labour Party is our name. We espouse the values of democracy, but it's not in our name. The Democratic Labour Party have patted themselves on the back and beaten their chests and beat their breasts and said that their first word is democratic, their first word is democracy. I want to big up Christopher Allen. A lot of people, clap for him. A lot of people felt there shouldn't be a contest. A lot of people felt, you know what, we want Monroe Night, let's just do it. But this party ain't about that. We threw the floor open to all. Everybody started their campaign. Some decided it wasn't their time. It wasn't best to do it. Christopher Allen stuck it out. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Christopher Allen. Democracy was served in here today. The overwhelming response of the people in Christchurch South is yes, we want Chantel Monroe Knight. Chantel, I am so glad to have you now as my sister. I am so glad to have you now as the person on my right side, on my right arm when we go into elections. I don't have to look over my back. I don't have to look for the knife in my side. I don't have to worry the person might trip me up. I don't have to worry that you might run and hide when the going gets rough. So Chantel, we in Christchurch East welcome you as one of us, as our sister. We in Christchurch East will lend our full support to back you, work with you, and help you to bring home the seat. Right now it's 4-1 It's 4-1 in the House. 4 earned, 1 unearned. I hope that he watched, because the count tonight is going to be similar to the count whenever that bell is called. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, spoil vote, tomorrow night. I want to say something else, right? It is good to see the people who are watching online can only see who's in here. I want somebody carry the camera outside so you can see who outside too. This was good for the Barbados Labour Party. It is time now for us to wake up. We are now in election mode. Don't fool yourself. The Dems are trying to put themselves in election mode. But you know what? They had the 12 disciples and they had Judas in there. But Judas was necessary to the story. You had to have the betrayal, the sacrifice, and the rising again. So Thorn had his purpose. He betrayed. He was sacrificed. He's never going to rise again. Not in Christchurch South. I got to make way. Oh, well, good. So I want you all to see something else, right? We have our factions in the Barbados Civil Party. That's true. People have persons they're particularly close to. No. I'm not saying any bad way. Some people are closer to others than they are. That's the reality. Some have friends, they form bonds. Maybe it's because you're a neighbor, right? I want you all to look around. When Chantal decided to run, Chantal came to me and said, you have always been there for Christchurch South. I know that Ralph's people coming to you in Christchurch East for assistance because there's a representative vacuum now in Christchurch South. And she asked for our assistance. I said, you know what? I learned a lesson from Santia early in the day. Santia is my tight friend. At my nomination, Santia stood back. Santia said, Wilfred, at the end of the day, I have to work with whoever wins. I have to work with whoever wins. I support you, but you got to do it on your own. I told Chantal, I support you. You can have whoever from my branch wants to go with you and help you, and I can support you because whoever wins, I got to work with them. It has to be a democratic process. We have to let the people of Christchurch South exercise their independent voice and call for who they want. This is the person they have to pick. As in, I have all the confidence in the world for this person to lead me into the next election and for this person to walk up the steps of Parliament and turn left and take their seat as the duly elected representative for Christchurch South. I was amazed at the amount of people from Christchurch East who jumped on the tomorrow night bandwagon. And you can look around and see them, right? In the yes shirts. But you know what? They went out and they brought people for the South who were not previously in. They brought their family in. So while Christchurch East went out initially with Chantal tomorrow night, it is Christchurch South that elected her. You have a full branch. You have the nucleus to go again. You have the core. You have the core to revitalize this party in Christchurch South and bring this seat home. Now let me just end by saying this. I love the Barbados Labour Party. I believe in my heart of hearts that this is the party for Barbados at this time. I believe that the MPs we have are the MPs that we need for this time. There was one space missing. But when you hear that count, you know they ain't a vacuum no more. That space has been spoken for. the people of Christchurch South, some of whom I never expected to see in a red shirt. So, you know what? Ralph Thorne, thank you. Thank you for giving us some more members. Thank you for sending some people from your camp to ours. Thank you for the votes that we have gotten that are going to vote specifically against you. I want to thank you for what you did for politics in Barbados. Keep doing what you're doing. We can do what we're doing. But all to tell you, stop minding the business in South, stop minding the business in East, and try to mind the business in George Street, because if you ain't realize, you are in deep, deep trouble. Kerry, I see my boy Kerry Simmons in here. Kerry is a member of Christchurch East. Kerry votes. I am actually his MP. Kerry is at home in Christchurch East at our meetings as he is where he's supposed to be. So Kerry, this is a Christchurch meeting. So if I can take the liberty, General Secretary, because we cannot have a meeting in the East when the man from the East who exposes the wisdom of the king from the East is here to speak to us. Allow me to bring my good friend, your good friend, Mr. Kerry Gerard Simmons.
A pleasant good night, ladies and gentlemen. This was a little bit unexpected. I want to begin by recognizing Lady Stella St. John. The wife, widow of a stalwart leader of the Barbados Labour Party and former Prime Minister and stalwart representative of this constituency. I want, ladies and gentlemen, also to congratulate Chantal and to wish you all the very best in your role as the next representative of the constituency of Christchurch South. The very famous reggae singer, Ernie Smith, starts a song by saying, "Girl, tell me what to do. I hear what I hear, but I fear what I hear might be true." Y'all know it. I won't sing it, but y'all know it. And I'm going to ask you, Labour Party, tell me what to do. Because I hear what I hear, but I fear what I hear might be true. I hear that as bad as things were and had seemed to be on Sunday last in George Street, by Wednesday they had gotten worse. I hear, and I fear what I hear might be true, that a night of long knives took place on Wednesday when at the instruction of Ralph Thorne, the lady who used to cook in the canteen, Brenda, I think that's her name. Heather, pick up your stove and go. That is Ralph Thorne's democracy. Clayton Coppin, that walk every yard of St. John with Errol Walton Barrow. And then with David Thompson, to the point where Clayton Coppin was like David Thompson's shadow. When you saw Thompson, you saw Clayton Coppin. Not true, ladies? Kick him off the executive of the party. Leave because you did not support Ralph Thorne. A night of long knives. And if it was bad to see how Undine Whittaker, who served that party faithfully for 47 years, I didn't even know it was so long until I heard her pleading at the gate, bolted in her face. Miss Mapp. We can't forget Miss Mapp. That did the advertisement about the bus service in 2018, Satya and Jerome. That served them faithfully. Your constituent, my friend. And Miss Mapp denied access even to pass water. Even to pass water. And then, of course, there is a I believe some of you would have had it on your WhatsApp. It was shown to me today, a letter that is a letter of dismissal for some of the former candidates. Thanking you for your service. You were serving on the executive at the pleasure of people who are now expelled. So therefore, goodbye, because they're expelled and the pleasure is no longer theirs. That is Ralph Thorne's democracy. And I start there, ladies and gentlemen, because Ralph Thorne on last Sunday held a press conference in George Street. And Ralph Thorne at that press conference in George Street sought to argue to the public that this party and this country was governed by a dictator. Now, who met Ralph Thorne? Because the lunatics would now have to be running the asylum. Can it be? No, don't laugh at this now. Can it be, Labour Party? Can it be that Satan is now condemning sin? Can it be? But if all that I have just told you and all that you saw on WhatsApp and on the news, I heard on every news station in Barbados, and you know to be a fact about the lunacy and madness and the utter destruction and the desolation being wrought upon the earth in George Street by Ralph Thorne, and he can come and tell somebody about democracy? There's a saying on the street where the fellas will tell you, man, piss in my pocket. But there were some other things he said in the press conference that I feel that we as a party must respond to. I hear at short notice, but I'm going to say to you that among the things that he said at the press conference, that we, the Labour Party, are responsible for the disintegration of communities in this country. Now I want to call Ralph Thorne here and now, because I know that there are some people who leave a political party or will abandon a political party because of principle. And there are other people who will abandon principles because of a political party. Ralph Thorne abandoned any principles he has because of the political party he now serves. If he can come and talk to us about community, well, Jerome Walker, you know that when Ralph Thorne was going to run in 2018, he said that he considered it to be morally reprehensible that streets in Worthing and in some parts of St. Lawrence could be desecrated with people having to live with putrid, undiluted feces flowing through the neighborhoods. That was his position then. And we went and we cleaned it up after having won the government. Wilfred Abrams, 2 and 3 in the morning, standing up alongside workers at the Barbados Water Authority, 2 and 3 o'clock in pouring rain in the morning. And then once we fix it, Ralph Thorne, the same Ralph Thorne. But before I get there, I now remember. We had a meeting in Top Rock, Santia. At that time, I believe I was the leader of opposition business. And I believe you spoke at that meeting too. I know Mayor Motley prosecuted David Eswick because he was the minister responsible and made it very clear about that the negligence that David Eswick presided over was causing mayhem in that district, and that there was an increasing danger that the same thing would happen in Bridgetown. And we had to fix Bridgetown sewage project too, which we did. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it was at that same Top Rock meeting, I must confess, that I also spoke, and I believe it would be true to say that I prosecuted a fellow called Richard Seeley and made it clear that it was the most nasty and unhygienic thing for him and a man named John Boyce, who was running against the same Ralph Thorne, to be running about half naked on the beach, encouraging tourists coming to Barbados to go and bathe in Jobby. Those were my words, and I stand by them. Imagine, no, in all honesty, can you imagine that we have lived to see the day When after all we have done to fix that area and that district on behalf of the people down there, but the political beneficiary is Ralph Thorne. That he would not only leave us, because he could go along wherever he want to go, but that he would put the same David Esrick and inflict the same Richard Seeley on the backs of the people of Barbados and call them shadow ministers again. Can you believe that? And Ralph is going to tell us about community. But Ralph Thorne, by your very actions in Worthing, and by your very actions in putting David Esrick, the culprit, in charge, and Richard Seeley, the man who makes sport at the issue, back in public life, you have spat in the faces of the people of Christchurch South. You spit in their face and disrespect them, Ralph Thorne. I will not take pupillage from you on any issue of community. And if you want to talk about community, let me go in Oistins and talk. Because you stood on the floor of Parliament, Ralph, and you said that the people of Oistins were unworthy of the $5 million that was being budgeted for them. He is not only spitting in the face of the people in Oistins, but he is betraying a large amount of political ignorance. Because if he had read the manifesto, you win a seat, but you don't know how you win it. If he had read the manifesto of the Labour Party, he would see that we talked about creating tourism villages. And that we made it clear that any area that government owns and that is conducive to being developed further or developed from scratch, for there to be small and micro businesses that allow for tourists to come into the area and experience authentic Barbadian culture is what we will do. That's in our manifesto. That ain't got nothing to do with World Cup. But if Ralph Thorne had read the manifesto and understood the policy of the party and understood the issue of economic enfranchisement, he would not be heard saying that the vendors and Oistins are unworthy of $5 million in investment. Y'all asked me to come here and speak a little bit, but I want to say to you that the Prime Minister of Barbados is now present. I believe that she is somewhere outside in that crowd that I now understand to be about 1,000 strong. I would be wending her way. I obviously cannot see from here, but I presume her to be within earshot of my voice. I would urge Maki that you part the crowd and allow she part the Red Sea, and allow she who has so successfully led Barbados over the course of the last 6 years to have access to this place. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Queen of the Caribbean. I give to you the Queen of the Caribbean, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I start, I would like this lady here to be able to say a few words again. Because when I tried to listen to her, as all of the other people, the stream had not started. And I need not just the people in St. Christopher's to know who the Barbados Labour Party has just chosen, but I need the world to know who the Barbados Labour Party has chosen. And therefore, Madam, as I congratulate you, and it is ironic that as she did that, the first thing that fall is Thorne's next move. So I leave it to you.
Prime Minister.
I will start.
Prime Minister, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been before you a couple of times. I can struggle to find something else to say to you again that I haven't said before. But I want to be able to say to you, that as you have put your confidence in me, Christchurch South, that I am committed 110%. That's over 100% to you. I am committed to walking with you. I am committed to standing beside you. I am committed to making sure that I am shoulder to shoulder with you, with all of Christchurch South. I am committed to the women of Christchurch South. I talked before about the women from Carter's Gap, the Chases. I talked before about the Walcuts. And I come for the women like them. Hard-working women in Christchurch South. Trying to raise children in hard times, but proud and strong and just need a little support. I come for them. I come for the young men too. I call the names, Keyshawn and Keon and Shaq and all of them that I met. My friend Sean Squeezy out there, I come for him too, young men like him. Because that's how I grew up. People see you, but they don't understand where you've come from. I come from Bath Village, Paradise Village. Good area. But an area where everything wasn't always so good. My father was a single parent most of the times. And there were days, yes, Holly, I always tell the story. I grew up sometimes going to school on a little sweet drink and some biscuits. But I made it. I made it here. Hard work, family, and community in Christchurch South. Hard work, community in Christchurch South, and that is why I come to give back to Christchurch South. Because I know what it is to don't have. I know what it is as well to achieve. And I know that again with support, and that is why I said I can walk with you, walk shoulder to shoulder with you, to be able to give back to you just as was given to me. I also want to say to you that my representation will be different. It has to be different because you deserve different. In 2018, I worked with the then representative, Ralph Thorne. I worked in his campaign, managed his office, walked all about too as well. And like you, to have somebody that you put your trust in, your confidence in, to just walk away the way that he did. I want you to know that I will never walk away from Christchurch South. You can mark this day, mark this speech. I will never walk away from Christchurch South. I tell you all already, my navel string buried here for all times. Not just in the good times. Not just in the good times. Not just for me. My navel string buried for all of them. All of them, my people. All of we. I want you all to know as well. Somebody talked about it, Khalil. I tell everybody that I meet knows. My word is my bond. Somebody say yes, I tell them it's all right. My word is my bond. I have said I can't fix everything immediately. But if I tell you that I can work and I can try, you can take that Chantal Monroe Knight will work and she will try. When we were coming inside, the Prime Minister said a couple of things to me. She said, Chantal, don't get distracted. And I will not get distracted. All of the noise, I will not get distracted because I've come to serve. I have come to serve you. She said to me, while others running around, put your head down and work. Christchurch South, I can put my head down and work. I want to say to you that from next week, you will see me every single household I will knock on, every door, every person in Christchurch South, I promise you that from next week and over the coming months, you will see me again and again until you get sick. Until you say you're here again. You're going to say you're here again, Chantal. You don't like me? They tell me all I got to do is smile and everybody good. But no, I can put my head down and I can work. The final thing the Prime Minister said to me, she said, don't get troubled. Don't get troubled. She said, I trust you. Don't get troubled. Christchurch South, I am not troubled. You have put your faith in me. I take it seriously. I take it seriously. I want you to know. I tell you, always put God first as a woman of faith. And when I put you in my heart, I put you in my heart where I place God. And I put all of you all in my heart. And I am not troubled, Christchurch South. I am not going to be troubled by the Democratic Labour Party. I am not going to be troubled by the naysayers. I am not going to be troubled by anything, because I know that once all of you continue to walk with me and have confidence in me, Christchurch South will always remain red for the Barbados Labour Party. Thank you.
Madam, come and sit down. Take your seat. Somebody shift this speaker. I want to see who I'm talking to, please. Shift the speaker back across. Across, so. Not behind the mic, because it will get feedback, but just shift it across, right. Thank you. Don't hide the gentleman, right. I can see you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It seemed like just yesterday that I was here in Christchurch in St. Christopher's School earlier this year when we had a conversation about things that have now come to pass. But I understand the vicissitudes of time. And I understand that life is about choices. And you cannot get vexed, you might get disappointed. But you can't and shouldn't get vexed when people make choices, because we make choices also too. And therefore, as I come this evening to congratulate both Mr. Aline for contesting and Chantal for winning, contesting and winning, and above all else, the people of Christchurch South, the branch members, for doing their business, and the secretariat, because you can't take these things for granted nowadays, the secretariat from Grantley Adams House, Robert Street, for doing our business in an orderly and very decent manner. I want us to reflect on choices, because we learn as children becoming adults that life is about choices. And how you spend your time and what you choose to do tells us more about you than anything else. So that my duty as leader of this party and as Prime Minister of this country is to continue to remind you of the choices that we have made, and to be able to allow you to make up your own mind, because Barbados is a democracy. We do not choose to win by default, although that is entirely possible so to do now. We choose, whenever the time comes again, to win by record, by performance. And therefore, while others choose to distract, we choose to represent. While others choose to dictate, we choose to work on your behalf. And while others choose to disenfranchise, we choose to enfranchise and empower. say these things here because you can better understand why you here in Christchurch South must be part and parcel of the reminding of those choices to the people of this country, and that my duty here this evening is not to add to a circus elsewhere in Barbados. Barnum and Bailey does not belong to Barbados, but it has rivals in Barbados. And I am known for a lot of old good Bajan sayings that our grandmother and grandfathers reinforcing us, right, Brady? That fowl cock must stay out of cockroach business. So I have no part, no place, and no desire to be anywhere else other than to represent, to work on behalf, to empower, and to enfranchise. And that is what the Barbados Labour Party has come to you to continue to do today. It is interesting that those who spoke on this platform tonight reminded us of the deep, dark, fecal days. But the truth is that not by a choice of our own, but by circumstances of the climate, we confronted a similar situation about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, however long Beryl was. And we faced what the coastal engineers have described was the most perfect storm surge that could be made possible by a storm, because the hurricane, as it was strengthening, we now know it is the fastest growing hurricane to ever come out so far east and so early, and that the strongest winds were to the northwest while it traveled to the southeast of Barbados. So that this is the land of Joel Garner. And you would remember that Joel Garner had a long run up. And this storm caused the waves to have a long run up too. And that is what was responsible for the 25 and 30-foot waves that we felt here the other day. But as we did that, we recognize, my friends, that the installations that we put in place when we came into office to stop sewage on the streets would have been affected, or could have been affected, I should say. And I thank William Duguid for taking the lead with the Barbados Water Authority to be proactive and to go in and ensure that the excellent work that Wilfred did when he was Minister of Water in putting the outflow pipes off Graham Hall, that we would be in good position. And the wisdom that Wilfred reflected as leader of that ministry in putting 2 pipes down, an 8-inch pipe and a 12-inch pipe, so that there would be redundancy, so that if one break, you still got another one to hold on to, hopefully. Both could break, that is always a point. But the chances of one for sure breaking was always there. And the proactive work within hours of Beryl passing us allowed us to determine where we had a leak, and many a person in this country did not even know that we had a problem with the outflow in the sewage pipe, and that it was fixed in no time at all, that the corrective action to protect the people's health in this country was taken to shut down that beach, not because there was any sewage coming on shore, but we did not want to take the risk whatsoever. And I give you this as another example of choices, because the choices that we make determine the outcome. And today, we are therefore benefiting from that, recognizing that the work that Santia started for me with respect to the debt for climate swap And the replacement now of that South Coast sewage treatment plant, not as a plant as it currently does that will simply screen and take out the solids, but one that will treat everything so that we, as a water scarce country, and we know it, we feel it, we know it, that we can take the water that is treated and put it down into the aquifers so that all of Barbados can benefit from the replenishment of the aquifers, and that we can equally pipe it into the parish of St. Philip to use for non-leafy agriculture, because we all know how arid St. Philip can be on its own. I say these things because it is too easy to take for granted how different this could have been if we had the cavalier approach that the last government had with respect to the management of our infrastructure, and don't talk about our people. Cavalier. And the consequences of that cavalier attitude were ultimately on portrayal at George Street last week. But it is not for me to get in there. It is for me to stay focused. Because while others seek to distract, we will represent. While others dictate, we will work for you. And while others disenfranchise, we will build the big tent and enfranchise and empower. That is the nature of the Barbados Labour Party. And the sewage on the streets only seems as a single issue. But it reminds me of our broad thematic approach. We asked you back in 2018 to allow us to address mission critical issues first. And we did it. From the sewage to the buses to the sanitation trucks to the building out of the first A&E to the wage increases. When you had no wage increase for 8 years, the Barbados Labour Party gave the public servants a 5% wage increase straight off the bat. And in fact, you've had 3 wage increases in 6 years, while others gave you 1 in 10. Mission critical. And as we were getting ready to turn the corner with mission critical, COVID come. And instead of going to mission transformation, we had then to go to mission survival. And you know how I feel about that. I tear up a lot of the times when I think about how this country rose together as one magnificent people to allow us to be able to chart our way through that most difficult period. But we are now in mission transformation. And mission transformation means a number of things. I couldn't do the things under mission critical and mission survival that we would have wanted to do across the board, because instead of spending money at the hospital to be able to fix the long-term problems that we had to build a new hospital up at St. Lucie. Let's get straight. In order to make sure that the people who went into the QEH would not put at risk the others in the QEH with respect to COVID, which was spreading like wildfire across this country, particularly not even in the early days, but from the time the bus ride, the brandy bus ride came about on December 31st. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars in building out a new hospital in less than a month at the old St. Lucie Naval Base. We then had to turn around and hire more people and do other things in order to be able to deal with the public health realities of what we call social distancing and all of the other things that were necessary to ensure that the hospital itself did not become the most virulent spreader of the disease. But that is behind us. And I pray that we will not see another pandemic in a hurry, But I am conscious that in Dubai last year, Jerome will tell you, that we signed a pact because, and Chantal will tell you, because she has been on the forefront of leading this country's climate negotiations on my behalf. We recognize as a world that the increase in temperatures is likely to lead to new pathogens, and those new pathogens can lead to new pandemics. So that it is unlikely that the world will go 100 years again without seeing a major pandemic. We expect that in your lifetime, I hope mine too, because I want to live long too, that we will see it again. But for the moment, we have passed that point. And even though you will see spikes like you will see with the flu and COVID will come and go, and we must protect the elderly among us. And Brady, I'm so glad to see you wearing your mask, and I encourage other elderly people to continue to do so as they move about, because it is better to be safe than to be sorry. Thank you, Santi, for making sure you wear it. But the point I'm making is this, that we are now in a position to turn the corner. And we have the lawyers completing the work on what is effectively a $130 million bond to recapitalize the equipment of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And we expect that that legal work will finish within a matter of weeks, Jerome, and that those orders will effectively allow us to do a lot of the things that we couldn't do because what we were left was a basket case in terms of our debt. And we couldn't do the things. And then when COVID distracted us and we had to build new ICU beds and get new equipment and do all of the things to keep people alive, it meant that we couldn't go back in and do the things that we wanted to do from December 2019 that we had hoped that 2020 would have allowed us to do. Today, I was able, after announcing it in the budget in March of this year, to finally sign off on the creation, and I don't want to give you the wrong number. Old age is a hell of a thing. Huh? 289 posts. 289 posts at a rough cost of $11.7 million to be created between this financial year, which ends in March next year, and the next financial year. And those 282 posts, 289 posts, are across one. We are introducing patient safety officers, and we're introducing a new service improvement manager, because we're not fooling anybody. We know that there must be improvement in service delivery at the hospital, but we recognize that people must come to work every day to make that happen. I have the fiscal room to choose to go there rather than to do other things. We know that we are short on nurses. And in fact, Cabinet agreed on Thursday that a team of 6 will go to Ghana yet again to be able to allow us to bring in 112 nurses from there. But I have agreed also to create in the nursing department 142 registered nurses alone, 71 this year and 71 next year. So Jerome is filling existing vacancies, but we are also increasing the number of posts to be able to make sure that we can have better nursing ratios. And let us be real. The same British that did not want the Ghanaians to pass through there, we had to charter a plane to bring the Ghanaian nurses to Barbados. So you're going to hear about this more and more. You're going to hear about it with the same Auditor General report with the housing construction. The Americans, the British, the Europeans, they do not want people easily transiting through their countries. And therefore, it means that more often than not, people from Africa, people from China, people from Asia, people from Latin America, invariably can't get the right to go through those countries. And last time we chartered a plane because we had enough people, enough nurses to bring, and we may well have to do it again. But you know what the irony is? That the same people that won't let them pass through the country come and take up the nurses and got them working in England now. You can believe that? But such is life. In addition to that, we have committed to being able to create something called a nurse practitioner and to equally have clinical nurse specialists. Because you should not have to go into administration to earn more in the nursing profession. If you are a good nurse, we want you to continue to be a good nurse and to deliver services to the patients and to the nursing profession as a good nurse. And therefore you have specialist nurses and you have equally your nurse practitioners. In addition, we accept that the A&E department needs continual beefing up. And therefore, we have agreed equally that between additional nursing assistants, nurses, departmental aides, general workers, orderlies, across the whole spectrum, that we and 2 consultants and 4 senior registrars or house officers, in other words, 6 doctors altogether, in addition to nurses and patient flow people and departmental aides, that we are going to put those persons in there. We've just finished the expanded physical area of A&E. We started it, as I said, in the early part of the administration, and we had to wait to go upstairs, but we couldn't do anything during COVID. Let me get real. Because COVID meant that you had to, Lisa, the space between you and this gentleman had to be observed, not the one that's sitting next to you. So that it meant that the hospital plant altogether could not do what it needed to do. You heard me talk just now about the medical equipment and plant. We took out the linear accelerator for cancer patients because we understood that we could not wait to the end to deal with that, and we expect that that will come on island before the end of the year. In addition, we also took out lab equipment because we recognize that a lot of the time when people are in A&E waiting, it is because they're waiting on lab results in order for them, the doctors, to determine if to send you here, there, or yonder. And therefore, we took these out without prejudice to the $130 million that we spend in there. My friends, we choose to represent. We choose to work on your behalf. And we choose to stay focused. And as much as I keep telling you, the young ones in here will know about it, but all who know about Elizabeth and Bewitched would know that you can't twiggle your nose and make things happen like that. Let me get real. And we live in a world where because of this same thing here, this same phone, this same technology, the same fast food at Chefette and Kentucky and wherever, people expect everything to happen so. But there is still a process to good governance, and there is still a process to being able to get things executed in order and in time. And sometimes, if I tell you the truth, I feel cheated by COVID. Because this government was getting ready to start the transformation and had completely to shift gear to deal with mission survival. But it isn't only in healthcare that you're seeing it. You see the new geriatric hospital going up, and that will finish by early next year, by April or May. And the reality is that new geriatric hospital, I passed there up, I went in up to this afternoon. The people from C.O. Williams would tell you, so I know that the man was working, putting down the pipes in the rain in order to be able to get the thing fixed, the road fixed, so that they can do the work and get their sorted out. Men working in the rain today when I pass. But that new geriatric hospital will be the first purpose-built geriatric hospital in this country that will not only go to the aid of the patients, it will go to the aid of the nurses and the doctors and the orderlies, because under the current site, which is a 19th century building, you don't have the capacity other than to lift people up to the second floor. You don't have the kind of hydraulic lifts and the different other machines and all other kinds of things that will allow us to allow our workers, our health workers, to be able to treat to the elderly population in the best way that they can. So it is not only good for occupational health and safety, it is good for the patients, it is good for everyone. You, me, all of we. But it isn't only healthcare. And there are challenges, don't get me wrong. We don't pretend that life is about perfection. Tell me one person in here that got a perfect life. Not one. But we do our best, and we continue to move in the right direction. I go to the issue of how the country is faring post-Beryl, in particular the fishing and fisheries community. I want to thank the fishing community for the most part in this country for their sense of reasonableness and understanding. But also to recognize that the government has moved with dispatch. And I'm not sure that there has been a full reporting to the country with respect to this matter. Those who do not pay a national insurance scheme, either now or during COVID, we found ourselves having to introduce something called a business interruption benefit, because people must have a living wage in this country if they're not to fall through the cracks. It is not intended to be the balm for everything, but it is intended to stave off the worst. And the government worked out a framework, and Adrian has been leading this effort for us, along with his public officers, his chief fisheries officer, his permanent secretary, all of whom have pulled real weight and have not applied themselves to a 9-to-4 schedule to be able to help out what is going on. We have therefore already advanced $1 million. It will come up to probably just under $2 million to cover them for 3 months. But we have done more. Every single entity that has said to the government of Barbados, and I want to thank them, our friends internationally, from Rwanda to my brother in Dominica, and this one was particularly touching because we all know what Dominica went through with Hurricane Irma and Maria, and that they could send us $1 million EC dollars is truly reflective of the solidarity that we enjoy in this region. To Cayman Islands, the Premier of Cayman Islands spoke to me up to a week ago, and they too have sent money. To the Latin American Development Bank, otherwise known as CAF, they were the first out of the blocks. The African Exim Bank, I can go on and on. But you know what we have said about that money? Put it in the benevolent fund for the fisher folk community. Every cent of it. Because we recognize that even beyond our first 3 months of the business interruption benefit, that there will still be needs. Now, on a parallel track to that, you want people to get back fishing as soon as possible. And I want to thank the workers at the Bridgetown Fisheries Complex, the Fisheries Department, but also the Barbados Defense Force. And I hear people talking a lot of foolishness when I talk about building a new headquarters for the BDF, about whether we need it. If we did not have the Barbados Defense Force, we could not get through COVID. It is the Barbados Defense Force that coordinated the cleanup of the Bridgetown Fisheries Harbor day after day after day after day. And I can go to many other things, because while we don't have traditional war like you see in Gaza and the Ukraine, we have the needs for civil order and peace, and very often what we have in the executive or in government is not sufficient, and therefore for the last 45 years these brave men and women have been out there as a matter of duty when others chose not to be or others could not be. They go out of duty on the front line representing us, whether it is hurricanes and other not nature-based events, or whether it is man-made events, or whether it is pandemics. But they coordinated the cleanup of that apocalyptic site at the Bridgetown Fishing Harbor. And we went further. We ensured that we could get those who could fish out as soon as possible, and they're only a handful, because probably 90% of the industry got affected with the repairs and with the new boats. And I went in Canada and met with the ministers, 2 ministers of Prime Minister Trudeau's government, as well as the private sector in Nova Scotia in July, early July. And they arranged that they would work with us to be able to get us back on our feet. Because the reality is that there are only 2 moles in Barbados to build fishing boats. And the 2 moles, each boat can take 3 months, which can't work. So that we need to be able to work once again with our brothers and sisters in Dominica. They don't have the same moles that we do, but they have people who build boats. And therefore, if we can get more moles, they can help us. The people in Canada, they have different types of boats because, especially up that side, they do lobster and shrimp fishing, but we do different types of fishing. And I've learned that our boats have a different set of peculiarities that are unique to this country, but we also will work with them. We have said that the government of Barbados will give a 25% grant for both repairs and new purchases, and we will also make it possible for persons to borrow long-term money. Because if you borrow something short-term, the repayment going to be so. If you get the repayment over a long period of time, the repayment going to come down here. And we have said that for those who, because of their age or other circumstances, may not be able to buy, the government will set up a special purpose vehicle and purchase boats and lease them, and the person can decide whether they want to do lease to own in 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, or whatever time it is, because we are going to stand in the breach to be able to build back the fishing industry. Now we're going to have some conversations too, because these storms are going to keep coming, and therefore you can't go outside naked. You got to go outside protected, and that is why you hear every day, Monday to Friday at 5:30, it's your lifeline. I can't sing, so that's the most I could give. But everybody in here know what I mean when I say, it's your lifeline. So if you don't know what I mean, you ain't from about here. It's NIS. It's more than a contribution. It's your lifeline. And secondly, we are going to have to find a way of being able to do the insurance in a way that works for fishermen and works for us, because if they don't do it, as you can see, we got to pick up all of what happens. We tried to be able to get the Ministry of Finance, and I'm sorry Ryan isn't here tonight, from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Fund for the coastal insurance. And we were told that they were not ready to give it to the rest of us, that they're only piloting it in Grenada and St. Lucia for the last few years. I think they better understand now that this is a matter of urgency for our people, and particularly for Barbados. Barbados has different risk profiles. We know that when St. Vincent got erupt with the volcano, look out. It means it could as well be Barbados and get the darkness. And while it didn't happen that much in 1979, it happened in 1902, just like it happened here in 2021. We know that we are more likely to get coastal surges. Jerome, when we were last in government, was it Lily? That literally decimated Liz, the south coast, and we didn't get much damage on island, but we had serious coastal damage. Not as much as Beryl, because Beryl is proven now not only to have damaged significantly the jetties, the 2 jetties, the government-owned and the private-owned in Oistins, the 40% of the fishing harbor. We have the preliminary cost for that. It is going to cost us probably in the vicinity, and these are not final costs yet because they now have to go and negotiate, but the coastal engineers have indicated that it can cost us anywhere between 27 to 30 million Barbados dollars just to repair. And when we repair, that harbor still will not be sufficiently strong or safe or capable of protecting the fishing industry in this country. It is Hobson's choice. If you don't do it, then the men have nowhere to carry their boats for safe harbor, because unlike the other islands in the region that have a lot of sheltered bays, Barbados got straight coastlines. You want to know it better than me. You understand? And what it has meant is that even to try to expand at Bridgetown where it is now, the water drops 100 foot, 30 meters. So that to even try to expand there, the cost of building a new or expanding a new fishing harbor at that point will break us. I ain't fooling you. Because imagine what you see at the top. The others tell me, the engineers tell me, that the bottom has to be much wider and sturdier to be able to see what you see above the ocean. So that, like a pyramid, so that if you have to go down 100 foot instead of 30 foot or 40 foot, then you are spending more money in armor stone, more money in everything else that you need to build up that process there. So that, and disproportionately more, as Wilfred is reminding me. So the cabinet has already started to take presentations, and we will meet shortly with the fishing community and the public, not just about the repairs, because we want to repair so that by the next hurricane season, and even before, because you could as well say May 1st is the beginning. It's not only Workers' Day, but May 1st is now the beginning, effectively, of the hurricane season for us, our exposure. But we don't only want to get it ready for May, as we will do. We recognize that if we don't do the other work with strengthening and building out a new harbor, we are going to be in trouble in this country. And we have thousands of people, especially in this constituency, in your constituency up here, in St. Peter, in St. Michael, in St. Philip, in St. John, that depend on the fishing industry and have depended on this industry for generations. And Barbados has the most mature fishing industry in the Eastern and Southern Caribbean. And I know this, Kerry, because I had to do the UNCLOS arbitration, and therefore I had to learn about how Grantley Adams up here turned the fishing industry from sail to engine in the 1950s. And then Bree St. John, Lady St. John, your husband, did yeoman service in turning it from day boats to ice boats, allowing people to be able to go out and earn more and be able to provide for their families. You notice who I call for the fishing industry on each occasion. It was the Barbados Labour Party that has been there to reposition the fishing industry in this country every time it has had a challenge, either willingly or proactively. So what we also did was have representatives of the industry go up with the Chief Fisheries Officer and the Permanent Secretary and government's Chief Procurement Officer to Canada to start the discussion also about what boats we can procure from up there. We are in discussions with the Japanese as well, and Chinese, and we hope also to continue the discussions with the Colombians. Why? There is no single country that can help us get back on our feet in a hurry because of the length of time that it takes to build boats, and in some instances get engines. Because Kerry will tell you that you do not have now a world where people keep supplies on a shelf, and that more often than not, you have to place orders, and then they complete the orders when you place them and when you start to pay for them. Everyone knows that. No, it's not like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, or even, and not even then, because in fairness, it was really before the financial crisis that the just-in-time economy was. Reggie, you and I went when we were young ministers back in the late 1990s, and we saw the whole thing with the just-in-time economy rolling out in Philadelphia many, many, many years ago. But we're back now, not to efficient supply chains, but resilient supply chains because of the combination of war across the world and the climate crisis in particular, which, as you know, has slowed down the flow of ships through the Panama Canal, because if you don't have enough water, it means that the locks can't lift the boats, and if the locks can't lift the boats sufficiently, then it will mean less boats going through. I'm taking the time to explain these things, my friends, because while others choose to distract, we choose to represent. While others choose to dictate, we choose to work on your behalf. And while others choose to disenfranchise, we choose to enfranchise and empower. Those fishermen, if it were not now for the intervention of the government, many of them would not be able to get off of their feet. And it is going to be a long journey. It's not going to be finished overnight. but we are going to stay focused and work with them because they deserve better as Bajans, and we will therefore ensure that they get better from the government that we are and that has committed to make this the best Barbados possible. The other consequence of all of this weather and rain, we complained about drought earlier in the year. We have drought compounding a situation of water leaks, what the officials call non-revenue water, because you pump a gallon and half of it gain out. For every 10 gallons you pump, 5 gain out through the old pipes. And those in St. Lucie, St. Peter, St. George, perhaps know it, and St. John, know it better than most in this country because they get the brown water. So that for us to be able to do justice to citizens of this nation, we equally have to ramp up our program. And I have spent the last 6 months meeting between management, the workers, the unions, and the government officials at the Barbados Water Authority, being able to expand the program for strategic mains replacement while at the same time looking at the institutional structures. Mr. Halliday will work out his notice with him, and I want to wish him all the very best because we have worked well and we understand that in life people move on. But at the same time, we have a responsibility now to ensure that the expansion which is taking place at the Barbados Water Authority can bring benefits from the people who rely on the Rising Sun Reservoir in Christchurch, right back through to the others up in St. Lucie. The people of St. Joseph Dale will tell you have pretty much had their issues resolved because we were able to deal with putting in the reservoirs and getting the water from Mount Pleasant right up through Golden Ridge to them, and then we built a new reservoir there in Castle Grant. And then if you go around the country, Wilfred and Santia and Ian Goodenedgel, where is he? They did the heavy lifting for me because we were told when Wilfred came to me the day with his chairman, back in 2019 I think it was, and said, Prime Minister, you know that you have reservoirs that will not withstand a Category 1 hurricane? That the people up by Santia and Fort George, with that reservoir up there that over 20,000 residents and businesses depend on every day. The people in Lodge Hill, the people in Indian Ground in St. Peter. You go around the country and almost seamlessly you see these wonderfully constructed black tanks, huge tanks. But that didn't come by lucky dip. You had to pay for that. You had to pay for that. But what that meant is that even though people complained because the water authority cut off the water before a storm, it meant that we were still able within days to get back and give people water. Could you imagine if those old tanks and reservoirs were destroyed by hurricane? You wouldn't be able, first of all, to get a new reservoir in place in under 9 months to a year because of the materials and the orders and then the actual execution of the work. And that is why I'm saying to Bajans now, we are adults. Yes, we have children among us, but children are not required to vote. The people who vote and make choices are the adults. And we need to stop letting a handful of people dominate a news program or call-in program when the day come. Ain't got nothing else to do. Ain't got nothing else to do. But they shall not distract us. While others distract, we represent. While others dictate, we will work on your behalf. When we finish there with the water and the strengthening of the water infrastructure and getting the additional mains, while doing the same sewage that for climate swap that will give us the new sewage treatment plant in the South Coast and upgrade Bridgetown, and be able to carry some of the treated water from Bridgetown also up to St. Lucie. No government of Barbados has ever received grant money at the level that we have received it to do the things that we are doing. Who wouldn't know what 40 million US is? Twice. Wouldn't know that 2 years ago, without increasing our debt, we did a debt for nature swap that allows us now to have between 50 to 60 million US dollars over a 15-year period. We're into year 3 now. to put a marine conservation trust so that the ocean that many of the people in this community rely on does not become a death toll, but can remain a source of life and a source of earning and a source of biodiversity. And what we are doing now with this treatment plant at the South Coast is that without increasing our debt by $1, you're going to have a new treatment plant. And then whenever done, I am told that there's going to be some excess money that will go for 5 years to the Barbados Water Authority. That is what you call creative ingenuity. And not only are we making and breaking new ground with those types of financial transactions here, but we are being recognized globally for breaking new ground in these transactions. And when we finish the debt for nature and the debt for climate, we are going Jerome and K for debt for social. Because we recognize that the Sustainable Development Goals, which the UN call SDGs, but here we call them the right to be able to live better. From whether Grantley Adams and Errol Barr and Tom Adams, all the things that they were doing, and Owen Arthur and Sandyford and everybody, and now us, we do it as a matter of course. But in the US, when you see the US conventions here recently, you begin to realize that the things that we take for Barbados has been giving children school meals since the early 1960s, and now the vice presidential candidate Walsh, Kamala this time, in Minnesota, one of his major achievements as governor was introducing school meals. This is in the 21st century, he introducing it, Liz. And we had school meals both here since before he was born. And I got enough gray hair. Unemployment insurance that Tom Adams and Bree St. John put in place back in the late 70s. We got that. Other countries in the world don't have it. The right, Jerome, to go and get basic health care. You hear people in America quarreling all the time. When I watch the movie, what is the movie with Denzel Washington in it, man? John Q? You remember that movie? Where the man almost went mad because he couldn't get health care for his family? And even though we are not where we want to be, we are working hard, and I give you the assurance that this government will make every day count to be able to transform our health system. Cabinet on Thursday coming wrong. They're batting a few things today. A batten. It's not for me to say. But a batten. On Thursday at Cabinet, Santia brought a paper to begin to deal with the cleaning up of this country. Because one of the consequences of all this rain, the place looked beautiful and green, but the bush all over the place. The bush coming into the road. The bush all over the place. And we recognize that as much as I would have wanted to keep the workers at the time, sometimes you have, like a jockey on a horse got pulled back and know when to let go and pull back. Because we are still in an IMF program, I can't necessarily always walk in a straight line. But the growth that we have and the way that we've been able to bring down our debt, they don't like to hear figures. They don't like to hear the truth. Because the 177% up in the air, call it a mobbeton of that debt, came down before COVID to 120% debt to GDP. We were the third highest country in the world out of 193 or 196, I can't remember, countries. We brought it down, COVID carried it back up to 152. You know where it is today? 105%. And the point I'm making is that as we bring it down, we start to get choices and we start to be able to get room certain places. And there are things that we could have done, but we could not do once COVID hit, and we had to redivert. Barbados had $1 billion structural adjustment programs in less than 5 years. The first one because of the Dems, and the second one because of COVID. Don't get tied up. So that coming into this space now, we have said, look, mission one, and you're going to hear more and more about the mission economy. You heard it and saw us sign with the unions and the private sector last year. You're going to hear more because your turn coming by January 2025 to 2030. You heard me talk to the, this is the irony, you know. Go back and look at my address in the new year of 2020, January 2020, when I asked this country to apply itself to a 7-year development program and to recognize that we need to stay the course to be able to achieve that. We couldn't run a sprint no more, that we had now to do some heavy lifting on some things. And one of the first things we know is that if we don't keep our environment, the land and the sea properly, we are going to suffer. And therefore, it is not only about keeping it clean, because Adrian, as you heard tonight, is king of clean and green. But it is also about greening. And the bottom line is that we have determined that, look, two things. One, and I want to thank the Attorney General for doing the heavy lifting and getting that legislation before Parliament with respect to making people responsible for the land that they have with the bush that they got on it. Ownership carries with it responsibility. And that bill has now been referred to the Social and Environmental Committee chaired by Tony Moore, the MP for St. George North, and it will go through the same process that she went through chairing that committee with the child justice and the child protection legislation that Kirk and Wilfred brought and are now parts of the laws of this land. Before, while others dictate, we work for you. We consult. And what we have done is to introduce in our parliament new systems. And why? Because sometimes it is easy just to do a debate and get through. We said, look, sometimes slow it down. Because you're trying to change a culture. And if you're trying to change a culture, you've got to engage with the people differently. There are going to be times, like with the BLP, when you had to move fast. I ain't fooling the body, and I ain't apologizing to the body for that. But there are other times when we will be able to move in a methodical way. There are other times, like with the Republic, where the consultation was for 40 years. Well, how much more? This is like, remind me of the story when we were children with the two old men, after you, and both of them with long beards going down because nobody ain't moving. Well, we chose to move and become a republic. And the Parliamentary Reform Commission has now submitted their report, and I imagine that that will go to Cabinet within about 2 to 3 weeks. For us to begin to start the process of analyzing their report. And I expect the Constitutional Reform Commission by the end of the year. Your government is working. Your government is working. And the bottom line is that when that legislation on the bush goes before the Select Committee, it will report back to us, I hope, within a matter of about 2 months, 10 weeks, so that we can pass it. And what it will mean is that the people before, even the ones over and away, who forget about the land that they got here, and ain't getting nobody to take care of it, and ain't getting nobody to cut the bush, gonna find that if they don't cut the bush themselves, when government cut it for them, it's gonna cost you more, because you're gonna go pay a fine as well for the fact that we had to take up people to go and cut your bush. There ain't nobody, unless the real rich and don't care. Everybody who got land know about the land. And if you got land, you can't only got it, you got to take care of it. You got to maintain it. Because when you, Eddie, when we did St. James Speaks, and the lady from your constituency spoke, and you and Adrian have been able to support and to go and think, she got sick because of what happened to her as a result of the unkept manner in which the land was kept. Well, the other side might like rats, but we don't want no rats about here, so we cleaning up. Jerome has a strong vector control program. It's ironic that he was the previous MP for Christchurch South, so that rats will find their way into extinction soon. Into extinction. The point I'm making is that I am calling on all Bajans Don't wait for the government to come and put a fine on you to clean up the land. We grew up in a Barbados where people used to clean in front, to the side, and behind the land. And there are still some who do it. But we need more to do it. Because if more do it, then we will be better. But even if you did it for all of your private property, government is a big landowner. And that is where Santia now is coming and saying, look, we are going to create some opportunities, not hiring people in the traditional way. Because remember what mission number 5 says. Mission number 5 is about empowerment and enfranchisement. While others are walking about disenfranchising from women to people, to old people, to all kind of people in this country, we believe that our program must be to enfranchise. And this is not new. Even before mission number 5, we were talking about the RE program coming out of birth number 1. Retrain, enfranchise, empower. And the bottom line is that we are therefore going to engage some companies. We're going to let them have responsibility for districts. And we are going to see first with the pilot how that works so that we can expand it to the whole country. Because as Owen Arthur used to say to us, sometimes you have to fix and test and fix, test and fix. And that is exactly what we're doing, because the traditional modality in this country is just hire people and let people come to work. No, we did not intend when we emancipated ourselves to be perpetually hewers of wood and drawers of water. We intend for wealth generation. And I keep telling people cash is not wealth. When you start to transfer money generation to generation to generation, then you can start to talk about wealth. And wealth is made up not only of cash but also assets. And the bottom line is that we are not going to be accused of just making ordinary people and poor people purely to be dependent always on other people. Give them an opportunity. If it is 2 miles or 2 kilometers now, Marcia, 5 kilometers or whatever it is, then give them that. This is yours. You can choose to cut it and clean it from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning. From 4 in the morning to 6 in the morning. You can choose to cut it and clean it from 8 in the day to 4 in the day. It's your choice, because we are not directing you the timelines. What we are saying, however, is when we pass here and check you twice a month, that the place got to be. And if you got sense, then, and this is why Santia and Adrian have a meeting coming up Tuesday. My memory's still good. Tuesday, to be able to bring MTW and NCC together to ensure that when they do this first set of cleaning, if we can start to plant plants, or if it is in the rural areas, as Indar has already started to do, you plant the lemongrass, you plant the couscous grass, so that you have things that are good for you. How many of you know the black castor oil plant? Thank you, Liz. Tell them about it. You know, we sometimes don't even know what we have. And black castor oil plant, when I went in by the geriatric hospital today, it growing wild out there. All across Barbados, the black castor oil plant is grow. Tell me how much money is made from black castor oil and beauty products, especially for black people across the world. And we look at it and call it bush and don't do nothing with it. Well, I am here to tell you that between that and breadfruit trees, there got to be a national effort to mobilize on both. That is without prejudice to other agricultural production. Breadfruit is now seen as a superfood. Well, we knew that because we knew that when the Dems was in power, you had to pickle it, you had to mash it, you had to stretch it, you had to roast it, you had to do all kind of things. And if you were lucky, you could put little cheese and butter with it. It is a superfood. And we know that as long as breadfruit trees are there, the Ministry of Agriculture now has 1,000 trees to plant. I've said to them, my friends, I like scale. You cannot get transformation without scale. And therefore, we need to be planting upwards to 10,000 trees and not 1,000 breadfruit trees. Similarly, the black castor oil, I'm going to challenge the Ministry of Agriculture to be able to ensure that rather than it just simply growing wild, that we can use it, that we can put the plant together to press it so you get the oil out of it, and that we can earn from it. But I want Bajans to recognize that the cleaning and greening of this country is not only good for our health, it can be good for our pockets, and it can be a mechanism to enfranchise our people, particularly those who would otherwise be viewed simply as employees taking direction from others above them. So that these are some of the things. You may say that, what about crime? Well, of course we focused on crime. And I have spoken to the country perhaps more than any other prime minister on this issue, recognizing that this is not a government issue alone. And I want to repeat myself. The entire Caribbean region is facing a public health crisis of violence. We are not as bad as the rest, but we are seeing signs that cause us to have to stand up and say, and to step up and to be able to deal with it. In recent weeks, the AG will tell you, the police will tell you, that clearly what we have seen is reprisals among some groups. Majority of it, regrettably, has been in Christchurch. And I really do believe that the police are on top of their game. I have seen the evidence of it. I want to salute them. That is why in the budget, I have pulled out the detectives and those in special branch and those who do the investigative work and the intelligence work. But the country is going to have to come to take some difficult decisions too. And over the course of the next 2-3 months, we will continue to have the conversations, not pompous. When we had the national consultation on criminal justice reform last year, I publicly saluted Michael Lashley and others from the other side who were there. It was to my great regret and horror that the person who we are replacing this evening did not turn up, did not participate, but would want to pompous no but a commission. Michael Lashley was there when he was not there in the interest of determining that we should have the reforms that you have seen Dale start to bring to Parliament and will continue to bring. And we will continue to engage in good faith, however, even with him and all of them, because this is beyond all of us. And Barbados, I am saying to you, when a child comes home with things that you know you ain't get money to buy, how to get it? You will be lucky if it is a gift. And if it is a gift, then you will be unlucky in the long run. I say you will be lucky if it is a gift because it might well have been them being a victim from minute one. But it is up to you to be able to do for them what your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did for us. You could not come home with anything fancy that did not approximate to your mother pay packet or your father pay packet, or it didn't come from your aunt or uncle or your grandmother or your grandfather. And let's now leave the children. Let's come to the adults. I know that our eyes are big sometimes. I get it. There are things that I would like to do that I can't afford. And I will probably never afford on this earth. But that's life. And when you therefore see somebody tell you they're going to treat you good and treat you good and treat you good, hide this thing here for me. And the thing hard and cold and not what is supposed to be hard and cold. Then you know you have a problem. And there are too many people, and I'm speaking to a lot of the young women too, there are too many instances of young women in this country being held. And when you ask them the question, they were holding it for a boyfriend. They were holding it for somebody who said they're going to get them a little piece of change and they needed to be able to make ends. There is nothing called a free gift. There is nothing called a free gift. But I give you the assurances that as we get the opportunity, as I said, for a little more freedom, we are making sure that we are not only debushing, but we are going to have to put lights in far more places in this country than we have traditionally done. And whether it is solar lights or the traditional lights, William, they have to go up as a matter of urgency because we recognize that people, even when crime comes back down as it might, and I hope it shall. I'm not God, so I tell you what we will do to create the environment to encourage its reduction. But even as it comes down, we are going to have to ensure that we recognize that people are already in a state of anxiety in some instances. And therefore, it is going to take time for people to feel comfortable again. And that is why the Light-In program is critical. That is why the Step Up program is critical. On Tuesday morning, I meet with the religious community and with the Ministry of People Empowerment, the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Ministry of the Crime Prevention Program, to begin to flesh out what the parental and life coaches will look like. These things I talked about in the budget. And we have had the negotiations starting between the youth commissioners who are supposed to go over the ministry and the unions. But in the meantime, we recognize that this is not a job for government alone. And when we had the day of prayer, those religious leaders I spoke to all committed to being able to come and work with us, whether it is the Christian church, whether it is the Muslim community, whether it is the Hindus. I don't care who they are, whether it is Rastafarian. We need to work with our people, because if young people are not rooted, if young people are not grounded, I take offense at the way in which the leader of the opposition speaks about morality as if he's the only body who knows what morality is in this country. And it is offensive. But time longer than twine, that's all I can say. Because last week was about immoral behavior too. When you can take certain people and leave them outside, what you're really telling them? What you're really telling them? So that we are going to work, because we recognize that, and it has happened for a while, but the stakes are much higher. Because when you have automatic weapons and when you have assault weapons, the likelihood of more people being injured or killed is far greater than when a man hit a man with a 2x3 or even a pipe gun 20, 30 years ago. So these are issues. There are 6 Caribbean countries that are in the top 10 of the highest homicide per capita rates in the world. Barbados is not one of them. But we do not want to get there. And therefore, I don't mind if you say that I'm talking like a parrot. I am going to remind the country, as long as I hold public office, and even after I leave public office, that you cannot step back and be a spectator to the disintegration of what is happening with our young people and what is happening with the criminal situation in this country. And yes, when we talk about borders, the guns that came in before, when there were no scanners working, you think that they disintegrate like compost? They're still there. And the few that continue to come in, and I am satisfied. Up to last night, the police took out guns again. Every week, the police are taking them up. But the reality is that the volume of guns coming out of the United States of America, and to a lesser extent Latin America, are voluminous, are huge. And therefore, I have said, guns don't walk, guns don't talk. And if you therefore understand that, then it is up to each of us to recognize that that is not to be encouraged or tolerated in our culture. And those of us who know where people got guns and hiding them or using them, we need to tell them, please, not in this country. There is too much at risk. We do not have the large land space where people can go and hide, and we are going to fight this thing together as one people. I am satisfied that the police resources, we continue to give them the resources that they need. I spoke to you about the intervention that we are about to do with the detectives. I know that the Ministry of Public Service has been in conversation with the Police Association to close off on that. But when we do these things, we still need the help, the encouragement, and the change of behavior of our population, from grandparents right back down to children. And if you can help us do that, then I believe Barbados can have a winning chance of making sure that we do not follow the road that other countries have followed. My friends, I could talk more and more and more. But I want you all to mix and mingle and to understand how glorious it is to have fellowship in a political party, since it is a rare occurrence in this country. I want you to have a chance to be able to have a conversation with the new candidate for Christchurch South. When I asked Chantal Monroe Knight to join my cabinet, I did not know that this day would come in this term. That is the truth. But what I knew is that I was picking someone who had distinguished themselves in the work that they had done in this country. I was a young minister of education when I first met Chantal. And Chantal worked in that ministry. Most of you don't even know that, with me. And I watched from a distance her work ethic, and I watched her ease of relating with people. She went on to work at CPDC, Caribbean Policy Development Center. And she started to occupy some corridors of power and to make changes in there and to represent on behalf of people who would not otherwise have a voice and who would not otherwise be seen. Caribbean Policy Development Center has done good work as an NGO. And I can tell you today that even the Bridgetown Initiative, when we started to formulate it, CPDC was at the table with us with respect to the establishment of that Bridgetown Initiative. Chantal has come into the Prime Minister's office, and she, along with William, have been there to be able to help me do the heavy lifting across a range of issues. Whether it is working with the Ministry of Public Service, whether it is working effectively as the day-to-day Minister of Culture, whether it is working with respect to our climate negotiations, and when you see her missing for 10 days or 12 days, yes, she went to Dubai, and it wasn't 67 people, but it was people because we needed to get money, and we've gotten over $160 million as a result of those trips. So let who don't know continue to talk foolishness. But she has been there. Government introduced for the first time in the government of Barbados a call center to be able to take people's complaints and grievances. And last week again, she brought the report from that call center showing that over 4,700 Barbadians have made use of that call center. And out of that, we have been able to deal with a lot of issues that may not reach Maria Bradshaw or may not reach the Nation newspaper or Barbados Today. Because the handful that you see in the paper does not represent the totality of citizens' concerns in this country. And we may not be able to reach all. But when we went to school, our A was not 100%, our A was 75 or 80%. So that when a batsman does not make 100 runs each time he hits the wicket, a bowler does not get 5 wickets each time they thing, but that does not stop them from putting on a stellar performance. And I am saying to you that this government has been able to do its best, but it has been able to do its best because of the people who occupy both the cabinet and the parliament. And it is this team that I asked you to give us in 2018 and 2022 that has made the difference to this country. Don't believe that it is a one woman doing this. It is foolishness. Let us be very clear that I may offer leadership and guidance, and I can be happy and I can be miserable as they can tell you. But it is the team that does the heavy lifting. Look at it. Get them, get up and now lift it with me. You can see all of us stand and lift it. It is the team. And to have Chantal now not just as an appointed member of the team, but potentially an elected member of the team gives me great, great, great joy and satisfaction. And I know that she will work with you. William and Adrian and Wilfred have already told you the extent to which she has been the de facto representative of the people of Christchurch South in the last few months. She didn't complain when Oistins was refurbished. Not the colors, because they got blue there, not even red alone. She didn't complain. She didn't complain when the $5 million was spent. Santa went burial the evening. When I came up there 7 o'clock the night and we walking about the dark, Chantal was there next to us, going right down in the back by the lockers, looking to see where the jetty had been damaged. Then when we realized that there were other areas in the market affected, going there and dealing with it. She has been the one who has effectively been carrying your voice and bringing it to cabinet and saying, let us do X, Y, Z, or let us do ABC. And you heard Oki tonight talk about her representation of individuals whose plight is seen by her. She don't look past them and figure that these matters are a long bag. These matters are not for me. These matters are not for me. You understand? I mean, I am happy to lead a team of Barbadians that include people like who are pharmacists, people who have worked in banks, people who have not worked in any formal profession, people who have been academics, people who have worked as professionals. I am not like the other side who tells you, oh, here I bring to you a team of academics, professionals, and intellectuals. Well, you keep your API team. And I will keep a team of all Barbadians, because when others choose to distract, we choose to represent. And when others choose to literally tell you that you must dictate what you must do, the others have the pleasure and freedom to walk Bridgetown every 2 weeks and have pictures of me as a dictator. They have nothing stopping them. Their freedom of speech is encouraged. And I say simply to Ronnie and those who say that democracy is at risk in Barbados, democracy is at risk in George Street. Democracy is not at risk in Barbados. There is freedom of expression in this country to the point where people feel that they can libel and defame you morning, noon, and night. There is freedom of movement and association in this country. The Workers' Union had its conference today. There is freedom across all of the freedoms protected in our Constitution. And if you don't feel that we are doing something right, the government, when you carry us to court and the court says, change that or do that, the government complies. There are many countries in the world where the governments ignore the rulings of the court. And let me go further, and I'm going to keep reminding you of it, because we take things for granted. When I came to this office, a prime minister could determine who is a judge in this country virtually on their own. And consult simply meant sending a letter to the leader of the opposition. I said, no. Pass a law to create a judicial advisory appointments committee. I don't feel qualified even as a senior counsel, as a lawyer. I am not a king's counsel, not like the people who like the king. I am a senior counsel. But even as a senior counsel, I did not believe that it is my right to go and handpick judges in this country. And I therefore asked the Attorney General to draft a piece of legislation that passed our Parliament and gives that power to a committee that currently comprises the former Chief Justice Sir David Simmons, the former President of the Caribbean Court, Justice Sir Dennis Byron, a member of the lay class, in other words, a non-lawyer, and a representative of the Bar Association, and the current Chief Justice if you're dealing with judges. So much so that even after Ralph left us, his wife became a Court of Appeal judge. Democracy is live and well in this country. And even after the Judicial Advisory Appointments Committee sends me things, I have the power that I can vary, but I have not varied. When we came to office, a prime minister had the power to determine effectively the head of state, the representative of the Queen, the Governor General, single-handedly could write a letter and that's it. I said, no, that should not be in the power of any single prime minister, because you don't know what the two can get together and do. I'm serious. It happens in other countries. You're all laughing. It happens in other countries. And I said, no, carry the choice of the head of state to the elected representatives into the parliament of this country. And today, a president of Barbados is elected from a 2/3 majority of both houses of parliament in this country, not by a prime minister, not by Mayor Motley. My friends, democracy is alive in this country. There will always be imperfections because we are dealing with human beings, and not every human being behaves or does the right things and says the right things. But there must be norms in a society that determine what people can do and should not do, and where transparency, accountability, and opportunity must come. So I say simply to you that our work has begun. I am not sure where Wilfred got it that we were in election season, because I am in work season. He meant election for nomination. Because my choices, as I told you, are to represent, to work for you, to empower, and to enfranchise. When the other E comes, rest assured you will know when that time will come. But I want us to stay focused in the cause of Bajans, in the interests of Bajans. We have enough going on outside that can cat-spraddle us. There are wars across the world in a way that there were not when we were first in government, 1994 to 2008. There are crises. Liz sits on our behalf on the new loss and damage fund that, even though we've started to capitalize it, it is nowhere near where it needs to be. And in the same way that Chantal works representing on other matters there, following Marsha, Liz is the person who helps us on both the loss and damage fund and with respect to the law of the sea. But the sea just cat-spraddle us. And we didn't expect that 6 months ago. And I now have to go and look for 30 million one way, but the Coast Guard base get damaged, and the fishing harbor get damaged, and the Oistins jetties get damaged, and the beaches on the west and south coast get licked up in part. So that all of these things can take us off of our path. But I ask us to recognize that life in today's world is not simple. If there are things that we can't control from the outside, let us control the things that we can from the inside. Let us step up to the plate and raise our children to understand that guns don't walk and guns don't talk. Raise our children to appreciate that gifts coming from people that you don't know. Sparrow had a song, my mother tell me, don't drive with strangers in the motor car. He went on to tell you that Sparrow was a decent stranger. I tell you, there ain't a stranger who's decent. There are things that we can control. Giving people decent work and treating people well. This government passed labor clauses, concessions act this year because we felt that there were people who were being unfaired, and that if you want to benefit from government giving you tax relief, then treat the people who you employ properly. And if you don't understand that, then we will have to deal with you. In the same way that Grantley Adams set the labor clauses, public contracts act. So, my friends, we will continue to do what we have to do. But representation takes place at the local level, and this, we hope, will be your new representative whenever the time comes. Chantal, you will be representing a constituency since its formation that has had at least 2 men do real good. Sir Harold St. John set a very high standard, and Jerome Walcott followed that standard. It is true that we thought John Boyce was not up to par, but he showed himself to be more par than the last representative that we have. But that is a different story. I have every confidence that when you become the first woman to represent the people of Christchurch South, that you will set standards that we expect, because each generation must carry us to a higher level. Each generation has been given a platform to carry us to a higher level. And I ask simply those of you who belong to this constituency and to Christchurch East and to Christchurch West Central, and to Christchurch East Central, and of course, the leader of the Christchurch team's constituency, Christchurch West, that we do best in Christchurch when Christchurch acts as one constituency and not 5. And I look forward, therefore, to the camaraderie which was lost for the last 2 years being restored to the Christchurch team. And I look forward to you validating the heavy lifting that this government has been doing, not in our own interests, but in the interests of the people of this nation. May God bless this country. May God bless this constituency. And may Chantal, you are a young woman, and may you live long beyond us to tell the story not just of mission critical and mission survival, but most importantly, of mission transformation. Good night and God bless.
Season settled, folks. We are not finished as yet. Thank you to the Prime Minister, Motley. You've given us 4 reasons and a better understanding this evening of what you're doing. Helping, comrades. Silence. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the Democratic Labour Party. This is not George Street. A vote of thanks is coming. Let us have the vote of thanks.
Prime Minister Motley, you've given us 4 reasons this evening and a better understanding of what is happening by the party. I'd like to also thank the Christchurch MPs who have been here to support us. I'd like to thank you, the people of Christchurch South, my team and others, and the other parts of Christchurch who have come here tonight. We wish you well. We have refreshments. And as you leave Christchurch South and St. Christopher, have a safe trip home. God bless.